I don't intend to ever actually bring a god on stage and have him interacting with people. I'm not sure any of the gods in Westeros are real.
There is only one god, and his name is Death.
Some people in the story believe in the gods, the old gods, the drowned god, the Seven, and R'hllor, and there are others in Essos. Some people switch teams in hopes of finding gods who will answer their prayers, and some people don't believe in any of the gods. Fans are the same way. Some think that the gods are real, specifically R'hllor, and some fans don't. I don't. And we're all right, at least so far. It's not been proven either way. In this video, we're going to dive into the interpretation that the gods are not real. Because of shadow babies and resurrections, there are characters in the story like Stannis who say, how can you deny that her god is real? And some fans are the same way. I hear ya. Don't worry, I'm not just going to say because magic. I mean, that is the reason, but we have insight into how blood magic works, and there's no gods required. George R.R. Martin has said that no gods have been on stage yet, and he does not intend to ever have gods interact with people, which means no one, not even Melisandre, has spoken to a god. George also said, the relation between the religions and the various magics that some people have here is something that the reader can try to puzzle out.
I think mothers and fathers made up the gods because they wanted their children to sleep through the night.
So I don't think George intended for them to be real, but that doesn't mean that they can't be, for you. If you want to believe in them, the story's yours and there isn't any proof that they're not real. But let's take a look at the blood magic of resurrections and shadow babies. I'll explain how things can happen without gods. So all magic is blood magic. Don't take that too literally though. You don't have to kill or sacrifice someone to access magic. When I say blood magic, I'm referring to life. I'm going to refer to the essence of living as a life fire. Everyone has life fire. When your fire runs out, you die. Or when you die, your fire runs out. Valar Morghulis, mother lovers. Mel created 2 shadow babies with Stannis in the books, 1 in the show. After the 2nd in the books and the 1st in the show, Stannis asked her to do it again. Can you blame him? I mean, win-win situation, but not really. It came at a cost. Mel said, no, I can't. It would kill you. The reason is because making a shadow baby drained Stannis' life fire. The shadow looked like Stannis, and in the books, they can't even wake Stannis up while the shadow is out killing Renly.
It looked like Stannis.
To me, it just looked like a shadow in the shape of a man.
In the shape of Stannis.
The shadow was part of him. It was a piece of his life fire. Afterwards, Davos noted that Stannis looked older. In other words, Stannis gave up some of his own life fire to create the shadow babies. That's why she wouldn't do it again, because Mel was afraid that Stannis would die if he gave up any more of his life fire. Now let's look at resurrections, very similar to shadow babies. Thoros has life fire, because he's living, and he was a fat dude, great fighter, but he ate and drank a lot. Beric died and Thoros freaked out. It was his buddy, he loved him. So Thoros gave him the last kiss. It's where you breathe fire into someone to send them on their journey. This might be literal fire, but Thoros mentions doing it to people who are dying, not just people who are already dead. I don't think you'd breathe literal fire into someone's mouth if they're dying, that'd be kind of a dick move. So I lean towards the last kiss being a figurative fire, life fire. Like a single breath of CPR, but not so vanilla. You breathe that breath with a prayer, with sadness, and with love. In the show, he said just a prayer, as custom, but same concept. In neither the books nor the show, Thoros was not trying to raise Beric from the dead, not the first time at least. He was just in shock, heartbroken, and going through the motions.
I knelt beside his cold body
And said the old words. Not because I believed in them, but he was my friend. And he was dead.
But magic in the world had strengthened hardcore, evidenced by the dragons, warlocks, and pyromancers. So all of a sudden, Beric came back to life, and Thor was like, my dude, what up? I am a believer. I'm finally a believer. The Lord of Light is real. Keep in mind, Thoros was the youngest of 8 children, so he was sold to the Red Temple as a child slave, trained to be a priest, but never believed in R'hllor.
I decided that all the gods were stories we told the children to make them behave.
He liked drinking, fighting, and doing the thing that begins with the letter F. Beric rose from the dead, and Thoros attributed it to the god R'hllor, simply because it's freaking nuts. Kinda sad, I mean, he did it himself. He accessed the river of magic through true love with a capital L, and as always, it comes at a cost. He gave Beric some of his own life fire. I'll explain. So each time Beric came back, Beric was less and less himself. In the show, it's not that clear because Beric seems fairly normal, but in the books, Arya thinks that Beric does not even eat or sleep. He can't even remember what his betrothed looked like or where his castle was. He was less and less human each time. And Thoros raised him 6 times. After the 6th, Thoros is like, my dude, a 7th death might mean the end of both of us. Here's the way I look at it. Take these numbers with a grain of salt, this is just conceptual, but it works something like this. We've got 2 dudes, a fat Thoros and Beric. They're both at 100% life fire. Beric dies, life fire down to 0. Thoros gives him the last kiss, and to his surprise, Beric comes back to life, but not fully. Let's say Thoros gave up 15% of his life fire and resurrects just 85% of Beric. So he's mostly Beric, but he doesn't have all of his memories. Same thing happens 5 more times, and then we get down to a point where Thoros only has 10% of his life fire left, meaning if he raised Beric again, he would die. And the Beric that he raised the 6th time was just a shell of the man he used to be, with just 10% of the memories of his original life. Later in the books, Beric ends up giving up his remaining life fire to raise Lady Cat as Lady Stoneheart, and like Thoros suspected, Beric died. So that's the concept for fans who are atheists and agnostic in terms of Westeros.
Only death pays for life.
Dany's dragon eggs have been turned to stone for ages, but in a dream, she chose to trade her unborn baby's life for one of the dragon eggs, maybe Viserion, but probably Rhaegal. And Dany sacrificed 2 other people to give life to the other 2 petrified dragon eggs, either Viserys and Drogo, or Drogo and Mirri Maz Duur, depending on your interpretation. Heck, even Melisandre's over 300 years old. I mean, that's not normal. She's probably stealing life fire of people she burns, and storing that life fire in the ruby that she wears. When she does magic, glamour, and other types of magic in the books, that ruby burns her. Magic always comes at a price. Here's another.
Close the windows, I can't stand it. Please make them stop.
Maester Luwin suggested that Summer, Bran's direwolf, helped keep Bran alive. Summer was outside the window howling as Bran lay there. They'd close the window and Bran would weaken, open it, and Bran's heart would beat stronger. So in theory, Summer may have been donating some of his own life fire to keep Bran going. Pretty cool. There are a lot of examples of blood magic, of life fire, and you can even expand this into warging and dragon bonding, the sharing of souls, inheriting part of the other person or creature's personality even after you return to your own skin. But the way I see it, every single form of magic stems from one thing: life fire. Valar Dohaeris, all men must serve. There don't have to be any gods, just magic, and the source of magic is life. I wouldn't even say life or death. Think of it like hot and cold. Heat depends on how fast electrons are moving around, right? Slow them down a bunch and we call it cold, but really, cold is just a term for a lesser amount of heat, or slower moving electrons. Hot and cold are not 2 sides of a coin. They're just different levels of the same side of the coin. So instead of life and death, I like to think of it as life and lack of life. At the extreme end, we refer to it as death. But as we've seen time and time again, death isn't necessarily final in A Song of Ice and Fire, with one exception. A very ironic exception. The essence of living is a source of power, and we call it life fire. And even after you die, a small part of your residual soul hangs around your bones. You can be raised. Counterintuitively, you can extinguish one's life fire forever if you burn them. Weirwood trees work the same way. Weirwood trees live forever if left undisturbed. And your soul lives on in the rocks and the rivers, flora and fauna. Unless you are burned. Ice preserves, but fire consumes, until there's nothing left.
I did not part on good terms with the King of the North, or his advisor.
Why?
Because of mistakes I made.
She was good, she was kind, and you killed her!
Terrible mistakes.
What do we say to the god of death?
Not today.